Hey, welcome my awesome friends. I have been doing this show, World Awakening, since 2018, and every show continues to blow my mind and open my heart, as it will for you in this episode number 135, as we meet Gregory and Gail Hoag, teachers and builders of sacred geometry. And it all started with Greg's Kundalini Awakening while sleeping in a pyramid.
That pyramid set off my Kundalini, and the energy was moving so strongly through my body that I literally had holes being burned in the middle of both hands and in the middle of both feet, just from energy moving through my body. It was at times energy that felt as if I was going to die, leave my body. It was so strong. And at the end of that period, I began to get it into balance and communicate with higher dimensional beings, other dimensional beings. And I started building what they were showing me, and it turned out this is what we refer to as sacred geometry.
So strap yourself in and hold on as we blast off on a multi-dimensional voyage right here on World Awakenings.
This is World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with your host, Carl Gruber. World Awakenings is a podcast dedicated to opening your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now more than ever awakening to all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how they play an all-important role in our daily life. So join Carl on this enlightening experience as he interviews metaphysical and spiritual experts to discuss, debate, and delve deeply into the hows and whys of this worldwide awakening.
Hi guys, I'm Carl Gruber, author of the new book True Spirituality and the Law of Attraction, a beautiful symbiotic relationship. Are you tired of being caught in the web of negativity that our ego-driven world mandates as reality? Say one positive thing and all you hear is, get real, get your head out of the clouds and prepare for the worst. Well, I'm here to tell you that negativity is not reality, and that the opposite is true. This is why I have written and published this book. In my new book, I show you how you can walk hand in hand and in alignment with the law of attraction and eternal universal spiritual truths, which will allow you to make all the positive, loving, happy, abundant, and healthy things you desire your reality. Find out how you can become a consistent co-creator of your life with the universe and get out of that negative spiral of lack, attack, and judgment. Get your copy today of my new book, True Spirituality and the Law of Attraction, a beautiful symbiotic relationship by Carl Gruber, now available as an ebook and paperback on Amazon. Welcome to yet another awesome episode of World Awakenings, a fast track to enlightenment with me, your host, Carl Gruber. Now, since 2018, I have showcased the world's top experts and teachers of all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening. And this show, episode number 135, is no exception. So without further ado, let's dive in and meet our guests for this show. Now, today we meet Gail and Gregory Hoag, and they are a rare fusion of consciousness with love, with a dedicated expertise in the realm of sacred geometry, illuminating the path to transformation, health, heightened awareness, stress reduction, and the removal of electromagnetic interference. Their visionary contributions extend beyond theory. Gail and Greg have pioneered groundbreaking technologies that have touched lives around the globe. From their creation of energetic chambers to the development of intricate geometric grids, they have harnessed the power of sacred geometry to amplify planetary energies and elevate the human experience. I like everything about that. So welcome, Gail and Greg, to World Awakenings. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Carl. It's a pleasure to be here.
It really is. We're going to have fun today.
Thank you. Yeah, you know, I love it. So we do have a lot to talk about. Like I said, everything is so beautiful what you do. But before we dive into this amazing topic of sacred geometry, I'd like to first find out what happened to you, Greg, in 1982 when you had a spiritual Kundalini awakening that completely changed the trajectory of your life. How did this come about?
Well, I'd been practicing meditation with a number of different Eastern gurus for about 10 years. I was in different ashrams, things of that nature. And then I built a pyramid with a friend that at that time in 1979, in today's dollars, it would be worth about $250,000. And that pyramid set off my Kundalini. Now, what Kundalini is it's an Eastern term for the flow of energy moving up from the earth, reaching back through us to our higher self. And the energy was moving so strongly through my body that I literally had holes being burned in the middle of both hands and in the middle of both feet, just from energy moving through my body. It was at times energy that felt as if I was going to die, leave my body. It was so strong. And at the end of that period, closer to 1982, I began to get it into balance and communicate with higher dimensional beings, other dimensional beings. And I started building what they were showing me. And it turned out this is what we refer to as sacred geometry.
Did that kind of freak you out the first time all of a sudden these beings from other star systems and things started talking to you?
No, by that time, I had already been freaked out by what my body was going through.
Right. Yeah.
By going through for years stuff that I had healers that were trying to help me, and they said, we can't do anything about this energy. You've got to somehow gain control over it. So I did what I could to ground into the earth. But by the time I started communicating with these other beings, it was almost second nature because there's love there. There's a sense of connection there. There's a sense of just well-being and joy. And when I started communicating with them, I had come from a practice of always setting the conditions, working with the light, working with the highest good for everyone involved, working with those aspects where I wasn't frightened in the sense of, could these beings be good or bad? Because I kept doing my work and I had understood how to do that for the previous 10 years as I was working with all these different masters. You set the conditions on what comes into your field of understanding, and you work with the highest beings you know to work with. You work with the light. You work with the love. You set up certain phrases, Kadash, 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 Adonai, Sabbatoth, working with certain aspects of the light where you do not allow anything frightening to come into your being. And then the information that starts coming in, it's not a scary thing. It's natural. It feels like, oh my God, these are the friends I hang out with and I love to be with, because they are not exhibiting separateness. They exhibit inclusion. They exhibit connection. Everything that we talk about and I know you've talked about in your books about spirituality. It's about unity, and it's about love. And when you feel that unity and love, you know you're on the right track. And if you feel separation, or if you feel anything other than love, any of the negative emotions, then there's something to question. And it's good to back off from that kind of environment.
Well, it's really interesting. It sounds like you entered the unified field because, as a spiritual student, the understanding is there is no separation. There is only one, and it is total unity. Only within this realm of the 3D, we don't realize that. So, wow, boy, this is going to be a great conversation. It already is. Just one other question about your Kundalini Awakening. Were you meditating sitting under that pyramid that you created?
I was sleeping in it.
Oh,
It's like I built it with a friend, and what was happening was that we were taking turns. One night he would sleep in it, the next night I would sleep in it. So we were sleeping in this pyramid, and it was more than just a pyramid. It had a crystal ball close to over 2 feet in diameter that took a year to cut in Germany. We had large crystal balls. We had crystal that was about 2.5, 3 feet high at the base, and all kinds of things going on in this pyramid that we designed with the help of a man, Kevin Ryerson, back in the 70s. He was well known. I think Shirley MacLaine wrote about him in her book. So,
wow, that's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. Quite an amplification of energy.
mhm.
And you, Gail, I read that you're an artist who utilizes light, color, and energy in motion, which is pretty cool in your paintings. Now, did you have a spiritual awakening too, or did you just get involved with all of this when you met with Greg? Were you already on that path yourself before you met him?
I was, Carl. And there were a couple of things that happened to me as I was going through my fascination with art. I was really looking for universal understanding. I'd be walking around trying to, look more deeply into the environment and into the celestial realms to find those connections. And one of the places that I found them was in the work of Buckminster Fuller. And if
Right.
you're
I was going
familiar
to
with him,
ask you about that.
he's
Yeah.
that brilliant guy who created the geodesic dome. Yeah.
Yes.
And he talked about geometry and the tetrahedrons and all kinds of things. And I devoured his book and actually got a chance to see him lecture. I was living in Washington, D.C., and he was at the National Academy of Science. And I attended a lecture that was it was so cosmic and so amazing. The way his mind would work, he'd go further and further and further and further out with his understanding and his searching for what was out there. And I can remember sitting there going, oh my gosh, where is he going? And then all of a sudden he'd bring it all back in together where it would make perfect sense. So I absolutely loved his work. It was so stimulating to me. But one of the really big things that happened to me when I was, I think it was about 20 years old, I had a near-death experience. And it was triggered from an illness. I ended up in the hospital and I wasn't responding to the antibiotics and therapies. And all of a sudden I started leaving my body and I saw myself going down this tunnel, and I recognized what was happening and went, oh, I'm leaving. I'm going to be out of here. And there was a part of me that said, no, you're not ready to go yet. There's more than this here for you. I remember with my will and with everything that I had, pulling it together, pulling my body back, pulling my energy back into my body. And then after that, I started to go through recuperation. And that was such a profound experience because, for one thing, I think before that, I'd been very frightened of death. And going through that experience, I just recognized that it was pure love and light, it put me into a whole different place of understanding who I was. And also it forced me to look deeper to, what is this all about? What is this experience really telling me? And so between, that was something that then catapulted me into my spiritual search. And you know how the universe works, that when you're on a path, different things appear, they just show up for you. And then if you follow the lead, then the doors open and you get to learn more and experience that aspect of who you are. So that's really what happened. So that when I met Gregory, he was carrying around this box of these different geometries. And we met in a house in Boulder, Colorado, where I had recently moved there and had these big paintings of mine shipped to a friend's home. She was renovating this house. It turned out Gregory had sold her the house, and he had a big table in the garage, and I was getting my paintings shipped in and was putting them in the garage. And so here he is with his box. And I said, "Oh, you must know the work of Buckminster Fuller." He said, "Well, no, actually, I don't." Well, this is an interesting part of the story too, where I had asked, Buckminster Fuller had just recently passed on. And so I, in meditation, just asked if his beingness, his soul, would be willing to share more information with me. And I had been working on my spiritual path and doing channeling and those kinds of things. So I opened myself to certain energies. Not anything, just like what Gregory is talking about. I've always been a person who it's important to have intent and clarity in whatever it is that we ask for. So I would sit in meditation, and then all of a sudden I saw the image of Buckminster Fuller coming towards me and starting to come into me and teaching me all kinds of things. So this went on for a number of sessions, got to the point where I went, "Oh my gosh, this is getting way too technical. I don't have a scientific background. Either stop or bring me someone who I can share this with, who we can do something with this." Well, guess what? It wasn't long after that I bump into Gregory, and he's carrying this box that has all these tetrahedrons.
I see a big hand.
So, yep. So there it was.
Wow, that's a great story. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people here in the 21st century, especially young people, have no idea who R.Buckminster Fuller was, one of the greatest minds of the 20th century. And I think I read his autobiography once, and it was in such intelligentsia language. It was really hard for me to keep up with him and understand what he was just beyond. He was way out there with his genius. But yeah, look him up. So, well, let's keep rolling here. Of course, I've got to ask the big question: what is sacred geometry, and how the heck did you discover it? Whoever wants to get into that.
I'm going to let Gregory go for this one.
Well, it's like when I started downloading information, it came in the way of forms, of geometries. And it turns out that, as I've heard you share before, 99.99999% of all this stuff around us is pure energy. But that energy moves, and it has rhythms, it has cycles, it has patterns that it forms. And so when we look at how things work in this universe, the way energy transforms from one form to another, or from one thing to another, it's through harmonic resonance. And that happens because of certain numbers, certain patterns, certain frequencies, certain geometries. Like we know it's all vibrating, but it's vibrating at different frequencies, and different frequencies attract each other. Just like a C tuning fork will start to vibrate if you're playing a C tone, because there's harmonic resonance. Well, it turns out that's how everything in the universe works. And when you study that, as we have done over these last 40 years since we started our business, it is called sacred geometry. It's understanding how the moon, the sun, the earth all relate around certain numbers, certain patterns, certain energies. And when we bring those energies, those patterns, those geometries into our life, then we can start moving in rhythm with universal patterns. And so sacred geometry is geometry that vibrates with the universal patterns of creation, the archetypes. There are archetypes that exist before creation. I mean, these are divine patterns that everything seems to follow. And we've just completed a book that we'll share the cover with, and it is all about sacred geometry and the fact that it is a universal language, which means that if I were to go to the other side of the universe and meet another civilization, what I know about sacred geometry could help us communicate, because the patterns remain consistent no matter where you are, not only in this dimension, but in higher dimensions too, which is really the universality of sacred geometry, is that it vibrates and resonates with the fourth, fifth, sixth, all the higher dimensions, all the way up to soul and soul dimension. So does that start to put it into a box that's a little more understandable?
Yeah, absolutely. And I had read some about it, but I mean, before I came to this program, I'll be honest, I really didn't have much knowledge on this area at all. But it's interesting because you and I must be in harmonic resonance, because I was just about to ask you about your book. Your new book, I guess it's about to be published, Sacred Geometry, the Universal Language of Divine Alignment. When is that coming out?
There it is.
Oh, awesome.
A picture of the cover. It's being published January 18th. And we've been working on this, really the last couple of years. It's been quite a labor of love and effort. I mean, it takes a lot to put a book together.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, there were a lot of things. I said, of course, but a lot of things happened in our reality to challenge, the writing of the book. You got to keep coming, okay, got to stay focused here. So,
And Carl, what's really interesting, this book is not just about sacred geometry, the way many people think about it. We really get into the exploration of consciousness, because when we talk about these archetypes and the universal patterns, that is all integrated into consciousness, into love. Creation is love. And so we show how this oneness all works together, and how you can break it down, and you can see how these different rhythms and cycles and patterns and archetypes have built something that is not this random crazy world, even though that's what it looks like sometimes. But it's something that, when we're able to understand it from that perspective of oneness, it is so perfect. And it's an important part of us to realize that the more that we're connected to these patterns, to this understanding, the more we can be in that place of resonance and peace and that harmony with who we really are, the more we can move to a higher level of appreciating all of life and understanding ourselves in the universe.
And everything you just said there is so needed right now in this seemingly chaotic world, because that's mostly what people see on the media. They turn on network news, but I don't think that. Well, actually, most people in the world have no clue of the mighty unseen companions they have with us in every moment, guiding and helping us. And you have to open your heart and your mind and allow them. It's like in A Course in Miracles, the Holy Spirit can't help you unless you ask, because otherwise he's going against your free will. So we have to have the free will of asking these beautiful angelic beings and star friends to help us.
And not only the asking, but the important part is the allowing.
Mm-hmm.
The allowing, which only happens when we're in our being state. So often we got caught up in doing. I'm going to do this. Damn it, I'm going to do this. And I'm doing this. And it leaves no room for help. It leaves no room for discovery. It leaves no room for the beauty of being supported by universe.
Yeah.
So this is a co-creative project. And as long as we realize that, then we can co-create and have fun.
Yeah. When you were talking about what's going on the planet right now, I think we've taken separation to a level that is so crazy. It's so bizarre. I don't know that we've ever on this planet had this level of separation. And it makes it harder and harder and more painful and more discomforting to everyone. What is so important is for us to find our common ground, our commonality. And when we can come into this understanding of sacred geometry and take it into our lives and resonate with it, it gives us the opening, the space to be able to see everything differently. And so many people are suffering from feeling lonely, we see things like, young people who are committing suicide at rates that we've never seen before because they're lonely. They don't understand the connections that are part of what I believe is supposed to happen in the human experience. So understanding sacred geometry and consciousness takes us to the next level. One of the things throughout all these years that Greg and I have been working together with sacred geometry, we've been building different technologies based on this understanding. These technologies resonate with all that we're talking about. So they actually are affecting the energy field. Mm-hmm. And just like if you go into a room and there's tension in the room and people are feeling angry, you're going to feel that, right? Well, on the other hand, if you come into a room where there are these geometries that help you explore your oneness, you're going to feel that too. So we can actually shift our environments and shift how we are within that environment through sacred geometry.
Well, everything you said there's so much we could pursue on that, and perhaps we will a little bit later. But I kind of want to stay a little bit about the sacred geometry. How did you guys come about learning to create healing and healthy products based on the sacred geometry? Did you have help initially from the stars and the angelic realm, or you just knew how to do it?
No, it was like, as I said, when I started going through all the Kundalini, started connecting to higher realms, I would see things and I just built what I was seeing. And she said, do you ever hear of Buckminster Fuller. I hadn't even heard of sacred geometry. I couldn't name the platonic solids. I was simply seeing geometries that then when I met geometers, they would say, oh, that's made up of blah, blah, blah. I said, really, it has a name. I didn't know it had a name. But the point is, back and forth, we always throw information and it helps refine itself into the aspects of sacred geometry that will help people in certain ways. And sometimes, I mean, we get downloads, we get information where Gail will come in and say, I've been told that we need to build something that will do this. And so we both sit down and we start to watch it unfold. And they help us do it in a way that it's kind of like letting us discover it, letting us, find the nuances that need to be found. And so that's what we've been doing with these tools for the last 40 years. But it happens a lot more rapidly when you don't have to do trial and error on every little thing. If I can, I used to tell people, there, just feel it, experience it. But people have such a difficult time asking guidance for their support, because immediately if we ask, is something valid, we'll be told if it's valid. We'll be told if we need to change the kind of materials that we're working with, or be careful of certain glues or certain kinds of materials that block energy. There are so many different nuances, and when you can ask and get answers immediately and trust that, after years and years, as I've said, we've been doing this as a business for 40 years now. And so it gets to be easier, and just the serendipities you just expect to happen in life. If you put out that you're in need of something, it will come to you automatically. Everything that you teach, it becomes after a while second nature, totally, for all of us to work with just putting an energy and a need out, and it gets met, and we expect that it will get met. And you don't do it from a place of your smallness, but from the place of your largeness. And I have a picture, an image I'd like to share with you, because I told you at the beginning, what you have written about with true spirituality, I have some images that can help define that even a little more closely, and how, aligning with your desires, how you can manifest more easily through working with some of these images. I can show you how it works.
Well, boy, I'd be really excited to see that. So,
okay. So first, I'm going to show you a picture of us, which is basically, we're like an iceberg.
yes.
And by that, I mean only a tiny bit is visible. Like the energy, all the rest of us is hidden on these higher dimensional levels. And because they're higher in dimension, I flipped the iceberg over to make the metaphor even a little more graphic. That little bit at the tip, at the very, very bottom, where we're looking at, down in there. Oh, here, I'm going to go back to this one. It works a little better. At the very bottom, that's where we hang out. That's our 3D reality. That's where ego has developed all of its protection, all of its needs, all of its understanding of reality. But you see, even our emotional body, that's those are fourth dimensional things. When people see auras and see colors in auras, that's mostly the emotions they're seeing, and that exists fourth dimensionally. When we start working on the mental level, you see that's more fifth dimensional. And there are people that can actually foresee certain events because time is different in the fifth dimension. You can move forward in time, backwards in time. It's like a rubber band that can be bent. And so fifth dimensional all the way up to soul, these are the dimensional realities that we exist in. And true spirituality is not doing everything just from your 3D reality, but you have to start expanding into the fourth dimension, into the fifth dimension, all the way up to soul. That is true spirituality as we become aware of the fullness of our being, because we're multidimensional beings. And if we're hanging out only in this third dimensional reality, trying to create from here, we're not going to be very successful. Because you see, this is how energy flows into us. This is another good metaphor on the right side where you have a deep sea diver, and he's connected to that boat to his oxygen pump through this hose. And that's what it's like with soul, what is called the antakarana. You know, that lifeline from spirit, from soul, is what keeps the body animated, keeps the body alive. And energy flowing from that soul, from that source into our 3D reality, not only is what animates us, but that's where all the creativity comes from, all the joy comes from, all the ability to create and attract positive things into your life. Those positive feelings come from higher self. The body doesn't generate them. The body generates self-preservation, which is based in fear. So all the emotions that come from the body are fear-based. That means your guilt, your anger, your sadness, those are all aspects of fear. And what happens is in this next image, you see all those negative emotions, they go in and they block that flow of energy from source. And so does stress. Anytime mentally you are stressed out from all the stuff going on, it blocks that energy. It blocks your ability to create. It blocks your ability for positive attraction. And then the judgments and beliefs, you know, that's a lot of what, you know, most people that work with positive attraction, they work with trying to get people out of their old belief systems, even to understand this is possible, even to understand who they are. And then your judgments separate you from all of this. You have to let go of those judgments. But then beyond that, there are things that are very, very difficult for all of us to control. And that's all the electromagnetic pollution, all the toxins coming into our environment, so much more every year. And it's been hundreds of years since this started with the Industrial Revolution. And human beings have been diminishing and going down more and more into separation, into what we're watching today. So much fear, so much anger that we're not connecting to what is real. And so it's by reaching into those higher realms. And that's what we've done with our sacred geometry tools, because I can show you some other images in a little bit, how miraculous universe is. in being able to create connections between all aspects of itself with the other part of itself. Because it's a whole body, it communicates within that body just the way our body uses the nervous system, the blood, and all the different aspects of the systems within the body to communicate within the body. The body universal, which we are a part of, has ways of communicating through sympathetic resonance. And that's more of what we can show you.
Wow. And so for anybody who just tuned in as a viewer or listener, literally welcome to the classroom. And this is great, where it's like Professor Gregory and Gail Hoag. And this is great. Some spiritual, deep, wonderful information. Wow, gosh, I have like 87 questions and comments now. But one thing too, you and Gail are so tuned in that you can hear plainly the mighty unseen companions that are here. And I believe that everybody in the world has the birthright ability to do that. But we have a world where people are walking around with earbuds in at all times and walking around down the street on a cell phone. And I'm not, I may not be much different than anybody else when that goes. And so everything, all this 3D stuff is meant to actually block us and keep us from being tuned in to those beautiful, guides that are helping us out. And of course, in this 3D world run by the ego thrives on the chaos and the drama and the trauma of the world. And now that the ego realizes the people of the world are waking up to the truth in the 5D reality that is possible, the ego is getting pretty anxious about this. So I'm throwing all this crap at us.
Yeah, it's an interesting time.
Mhm.
And, I think all of us who have foreseen that we are living in a time of tremendous transformation, that it wasn't going to be this like nice little pretty picture. It was going to take, like some real work to get us to really blossom to who we are. And so it makes sense to me when I sit back and I look at it and I go, okay, the ego or the people that are holding stake, they want to hold on to what has been. We were talking about things, even politically, where there are many people, as they're seeing all the changes that are going on in the world and jobs that are lost and neighborhoods that are changing and all kinds of things that are happening. And they're freaked out because they want it to be what they're comfortable with, the way it used to be. But it can't be that way. So I think part of where we're at right now is to learn compassion, really deep compassion for what we're experiencing now, because it's rough. It's really rough for our egos. It's rough for a lot of people to open up to tremendous shifts, radical shifts, really. And yet that's what is necessary. And I think we're going to see it get a little rougher before it smooths out. But more and more of these stakeholders are, clamoring and trying to hold on. We've been in a model of power over. And that element of power wants to keep its grip on what we've got instead of allowing us to blossom into the multidimensional beings that we are. So the real way, the portal to having this manifest is through compassion, through love, through holding the intent and the understanding that when we experience ourselves as multidimensional beings and we understand time and space in that reference point, then what's going on right now is it's just a glimmer. It's not the whole picture. And so let's not get overly burdened by what's happening right now. Instead, let's stay really focused on what the opportunity is, on what transformation is, on what being and living as a multidimensional presence is about. How much more love can we bring about? And the more that we do that, the more I think we'll just see things calm down. The oceans will just calm down. And And those universal patterns that we've been talking about will do their natural work, because there is a natural order here. And so we have to step back and allow that to happen, and keep our love just pumping and receiving in the mix.
Boy, this is some very wonderful and awesome advice, and thank you for that. I'm going to bring it back to your products, specifically your metaform. What is a metaform, and how does it help individuals and humanity as a whole?
Let me show you the slides I'm showing you. The images are actually from our book. I decided to just pull out some of the images from there. We have 72 images in our book, so it's full of pictures so that people can understand some of these things. So let me show you this image, which you're familiar with the Platonic solids. There are 5 of them, and they've been called by the ancients, they call them the builders of this reality. And so in this image, if you look at the number of degrees on the surface of a tetrahedron, it's 720 degrees. And then you add that to an octahedron and a dodecahedron, multiply that by 100, and you have exactly the diameter of the sun. The next set, a tetrahedron, octahedron, cube, and an icosahedron, add that together, and you get the diameter of the Earth. A cube is equal to the diameter of the moon, the number of degrees on it. And that's within 99.99% accuracy. That means that these Platonic solids are divine archetypes. They exist theoretically as an archetype before creation is formed around these patterns. So when we bring these patterns into our lives, like this is an image of the pendants that Gail and I are wearing. The geometries on the surface, those patterns you see, are different perspectives of a 3-dimensional form. So we found a way to take the energy of a 3-dimensional form, just like those solids I showed you, that are equal to the sun, the earth, and the moon. When we combine those geometries to form certain kinds of solids, and then what I do is every solid has 3 different perspectives that I can project into a 2D antenna system. And when I have each of those, then on one of these images, one of these plates, I can capture that 3-dimensional energy. And then, like inside these pendants that we're wearing, I've got over 35 antenna systems, oscillating crystals, circuit boards, all kinds of things that create a field that when you wear it, you are resonating with the same energies that are found in nature, that are found in the creation of this world. So before, when you were saying, walking and rocking with our earbuds, or all this stuff we're doing, we're not going to be able to let go of that stuff. We can't block EMFs, because if we did, we wouldn't be talking to each other right now, because that's how this technology works. That's why people are able to see our images. That's why our phones work and all that kind of stuff. So it's not about getting rid of it, going into the desert and being in seclusion, which wouldn't get you away from all this stuff anyway, because it's everywhere on our planet. Instead, what we need to do is bring up a parallel technology. And that's what these things are. This is a parallel technology that will help keep us centered, that will help keep us connected, that will help keep us focused and in a place where we can create, because we're vibrating with something that's natural. It's like being in nature, being, next to a stream, feeling the wind in your face and hearing it move through the trees, and listening to the animals, the birds and the bees buzzing by. I mean, that puts us in a state of connection because it's being someplace natural. We spend so much time in places that are so filled with these negative energies that we need to bring nature, we need to bring that love into our life wherever we're at. We don't block EMFs, we raise the vibration of a human being so that we are no longer negatively affected by them. You know that if you keep your body in a healthy state, it's not going to get sick as easily. And we're talking about spiritual health. We're talking about emotional health, mental health, all these different levels. That's why it's difficult for people to manifest, because they're saying, I want this, but they're saying it from a place where they still have things to work on in their emotional body. They still have things to learn. They still have stresses that they're working out. They still have so much to bring into order. And like with the pendants, one of the first things we hear from people is, I'm not sure what it's doing, but I feel good when it's on. And we can show them tests that we've done that their body starts balancing, that the internal organs come into balance, that the holes in your aura start filling up, that you start feeling whole and connected instead of separate and broken down. We have these things happen with electromagnetic frequencies going through our field, and we look around and say, oh, shoot, it's Carl standing next to me. That's why I don't feel good. We blame each other. We blame this stuff. And it's like, no, we're just feeling bad because this is the nature of our reality today, the nature of the foods we're eating, the nature of the judgments that are coming into us, the nature of the politics, the nature of what's coming into our reality is full of discord and fear and separation. And so we can only find that one place. The connection to source is inside of us. And that's where wholeness lies, within each one of us. It's not in my words. Maybe they sound good and you feel good while you're listening to them, but eventually you need to find that joy in your heart. And it's not from your heart, but your heart is the heart chakra. It's an opening, a doorway to your higher self. That's how you get to the higher dimensions, by going through your heart chakra and opening up that portal to your higher self. Then that higher being can come through. That's what starts affecting your brain. That's what starts affecting your information. That's what starts affecting your life. When the bigger part of you, that whole iceberg, can start operating through this little character. And it's fun. We love to have that experience. Once you start having that experience, it's addictive. You like it. It feels good.
What is it about EMFs, electromagnetic fields, that does cause disruption in the body, and specifically 5G? From what I understand,
it's kind of hard to have you talk when I'm making a lot of noise. And you know what? It's making a lot of noise, but people don't see it. People don't feel it. But you know who Rudolf Steiner is?
I know the name. I can't remember.
He's the founder of Waldorf education.
Okay.
He was an incredible intuitive. He worked with Blavatsky and a number of the intuitives around the beginning of the 19th century. And in 1917, he said, it's very difficult to be human today because of all the electromagnetic frequencies that are jamming us up everywhere in our environment.
In 1917? Wow.
That was 25 years, only 25 years after Nikola Tesla lit up the World's Fair in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
So in 25 years, Rudolf Steiner noticed the difference of how it was becoming more difficult to be fully human. And my definition of fully human is expanding into the fullness of your iceberg, coming into your subtle bodies, being able to work with the fullness of your being. And he said it's been difficult even 100 years prior to that time. And 100 years prior to 1917 was the Industrial Revolution, where human beings started moving away from the land into the cities. They got out of the natural rhythms. They got into more pollution. They got into being on a time schedule set by a machine. You know, these wonderful things called the assembly lines. Those things, those were run by human beings. You had to keep up with the machine. Ford had a great idea, but he found a way to make people work harder, because if they didn't work at the speed of that conveyor belt, they were out. And that shifted their field. All these things, the EMFs, the reason I was making all that cacophony while you were trying to ask the question, excuse me for that.
No,
but it was to make a point. These things are going on right now. The 60 hertz running through the walls, it's ubiquitous. It's always there, no matter where you are. And it blocks out the more subtle energies that come in when you're sitting by a stream out in nature.
Carl, we had a really interesting experience 10 years ago where there was an enormous flood in Colorado and in our home area. And it knocked out all of our electricity. We had no cell phones because we live out in the country. And all of the experience that we had was allowing us to connect even more deeply with nature than what we previously had been doing. And we got used to that. There was a period of at least 6 weeks where we didn't have all of that distractive energy just pummeling us. So we got really used to it. In fact, I remember when we finally got in a car and we were able to get over a bridge that they had to build and get into town, it was almost like, oh my gosh, I felt like all of this energy was just sort of like really jarring to me. And so one of the things that we did was we developed a product that we call the EMF solution, and that's solution with an SOUL. And when we turned it on and we had it running in our house, and I thought, wow, this is what it felt like when we were during that time of the flood and we had none of that electricity running through our home. And it's not because we could block it out. It's because the ability to get those other wonderful energies as part of our environment really felt and experienced. We were connected to it. So it's like when you're out in nature and you're experiencing, whether it's the sound of crickets and the flow of water and the wind blowing the leaves. There's such an extraordinary variety of different vibrational energies that are nourishing us, that are helping us remember who we are. And so that's what we're able to do with some of our tools, is help reconnect us to all of what is here for us, so we can feel what it's really like to be more fully human.
That's interesting. When you went without power for 6 weeks, it's almost like you were living off the grid for a while, and
Yeah.
which you really were. But wow, I'll have one.
And
Oh, I'm
just, just to say, we were living off the grid and we weren't producing electricity. So that meant there was no electricity going on around us. There were no cell phone frequencies, no radio frequencies, no TV frequencies. None of that was in our environment. And I don't know if, did you mention the that when we first plugged that in with that EMF solution, this is what it looks like, that form in the center, and over here on the side, this form, when it is spinning, it creates that field again. It creates a field from those higher dimensional realms where we can start to slip into that field and feel that energy, even in the midst of all the stuff that's going on here in our environment. So that's what I mean by a parallel technology, that still, our TV's working, all the things in our house, but we're running some of these forms constantly in our living room. And recently this year, Gail had a serious accident where she had to have surgery on her spinal cord. And so she just got out of a neck brace at the beginning of October. And so we have these series of forms in our living room so she could lie down in it. And when we lie in that field, we go into such a deep healing space that it's impossible to describe. But one of these days, if you visit or get something like it, you can experience that same energy.
Yeah. And something that was really remarkable, Carl, is that when I went through this accident, I never felt any fear. I never felt any anxiety. I felt connected, because that's what I've familiarized myself with doing, is staying connected. And it was really profound to feel that I was, just really bathed in those spiritual connections. Sorry to
no, that's good. I just have a simple, you just said you had no fear on that. I just have a recent small personal incident where I was driving and I got pulled over by the police because I did something dumb. I went over a lane I shouldn't have, and he pulled me over. And it was interesting. And I think I attribute to my being in tune with my higher divine self and my guides. I was completely calm. The policeman came up. He was very nice, and I treated him well. He treated me well. But I was, the whole time, it took about 15 minutes. He came up and he gave me a warning. He didn't give me a ticket, but I just felt like I was completely taken care of, and I was completely at peace, and I knew there was zero to worry about. And it is interesting when you can get in those places where you're in a harmonic resonance with your higher self and the beings. It helps you in those situations.
Yeah. It's a profound difference, and it's available to everyone. This is something that's natural to us, like you were mentioning earlier on. These are all aspects of who we are that every single one of us can restore and can develop more. It's all there for us.
Yeah. Well, we, of course, are talking to Gregory and Gail Hoag, the creators of and practitioners of sacred geometry. Some amazing products. I suggest you go to their website and check it out. And one last thing I want to ask you too. Many of my guests talk about how humanity is now going through not only a spiritual evolution, but a physical evolution into the 5D. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's interesting. I think whatever it is, it's going to end up looking different than what we think it's going to be. As an artist, one of the things that I trained myself to do was if I had an idea of what I thought my painting should look like, I would actually put that aside and then say, let's just get into the creative process and let's see what evolves. And so I'm going to say the same thing to you about your question, that let's see what evolves. And what really is most important is that we are all participants. I believe that we have all chosen to be here at this remarkable time. And the more that we can collaborate, we can work together, we can bring in the love and compassion, the more we can see what it really means to have this beautiful earth become even more divine, and the people on this planet recognize who they really are. Imagine what that is like, to be able to have all of us walking around together in that state of love and appreciation and compassion. It is, to me, that's what I see.
In the world, of course, right now needs more love and compassion than ever before.
Yeah.
And what it really comes down to is, if we are moving into whatever, the most important thing is, what are you doing right now in your life to already be there? Because it's not about where we're going, it's about where am I right now, moment by moment, breath by breath. You understand, I think, and maybe many of your listeners do as well, that one of the most important aspects of being spiritually connected happens when you are able to be present with everything that's going on in your life. Present right now with this very moment that we're speaking, this very moment that we're sharing. And when you can start to experience those beautiful things that are talked about maybe coming, point is, you can start experiencing them right now. You can start experiencing connection. You can start experiencing the purpose of your life. You can start experiencing that intuition that will put you in the right place at the right time. You can start experiencing joy totally in your life. And it doesn't mean bad things don't happen, but you know how to switch around by being present. You don't hang out with what happened that didn't work. You're staying with your moment of breath that is working right now. And so I think that's the most important thing about what are we moving into, what's happening with this or that. It's like, it's the potential for what you can do in your life right now that will make all of this come about, that will allow for all of this change to happen. But the change only happens because each person is willing to recognize that they can be the change right now, and they can benefit from that change right now.
And it's interesting. You talk about being present in the moment. Yesterday morning, I went out for a run near where I live, and it was a cold autumn morning here in Ohio. And I was having a crummy run. I wasn't running well, and I'm running on this beautiful trail, and the sun was shining through. And all of a sudden, I heard a voice say, "Why don't you look at what you're seeing right now? Just appreciate it." And absolutely, it was like a switch. I went, Oh man, is it beautiful out here? I was just present with where I was at that moment instead of whining and crying to myself how what a bad run I was having, and it was fantastic. It was just like, bam, oh yeah, look at that, and I appreciated it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's great.
Well,
Perfect.
again, I'm gonna just wind up here. I tried to keep the shows around 1 hour. Gregory and Gail Hoag, awesome stuff. You teach sacred geometry classes and workshops both live and online. Can you tell us about those and how people can attend them?
Oh, well, let me first, this is our website, iConnect, the number 2, and then all.com. And we are going to be, as the book gets out there, doing more and more online on our YouTube channel, which you can find, at our website. And if you want to take advantage of the special deals, I know that Amazon does when a book is first released, where they'll do it for 99 cents. Get on our mailing list, get on our website, sign up for a mailing list where we can let you know the day or two that is going on, so you can get the book, and then you can find our YouTube channel. We've been neglecting that for the last year because of writing our book, but now we're going to jump into it with a lot more fervor that we have the time to do it. So it's going to be on our YouTube channel, and then if we have any special programs that we do on Zoom to help answer questions about the book, etc., which may happen once a month or so, that's how people will find out about it, by going to our website and then being able to sign up, and then we'll send them the information as we're doing it.
And we do have a couple of archived classes as well that are online.
Oh,
So, and the book is so filled with new information that, and like we said at the beginning, that's coming out in mid-January, and that's going to be just a great way of exploring what it is that we've been talking about.
Oh, that's great. I'm going to ask Santa Claus for a copy of it. That's great. Well, this has been a phenomenal conversation. I'm just blown away by what you guys do. It's just incredible. And, the mission statement of this show is, why now are people more than ever awakening to all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening? Well, you guys have the answers. So thank you. And I'd love to come out to Colorado and be beautiful land. I hear it's a pretty special place.
It is. We'd love to have you. And we'll stay connected, and we'll get you a copy of our book.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, you two, for being on World Awakenings.
Thank you, Carl. It's been a pleasure.
It really has. It's been a joy.
This has been another episode of World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with host Carl Gruber, a certified law of attraction life coach. We welcome you to tune in to each and every episode of World Awakenings as we open your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to the truth of all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how much they play an all-important role in our moment-to-moment daily life. Much love and light to you, my friend, and thank you for tuning into World Awakenings.